Romania is not the kind of place you expect to talk about Celts. But Romania has a lot of unexpected cultural influences. In fact, I think that's what makes it rather beautiful. It is layer upon layer upon layer of different peoples, and even its bedrock, the Dacian layer underneath, was multicultural and multilinguistic. This is Benjamin, and I'm showing you that now. Let's jump into the video. Celtic culture falls into three main eras, pre-Rome at least. Before about 1200 BCE was very much a formative phase we don't know much about, but certainly as the Bronze Age was kicking in, and the middle of that, 1200 BCE, the late Bronze Age, going all the way through to 450 BCE, you had this culture centered really around southern Germany, Austria, Hallstatt culture it's called. You just see this here, this area that it occupied. But by around 450 BCE, things were changing. The Mediterranean cultures further south were developing, influencing Celts. And we call this period up until the 1st century, almost the 2nd, the Latin culture. This is marked by more intricate weavings, what we traditionally think as
Celtic.
Influences from Etruscans, Greeks, and this culture, Proliceccia, in the north of Italy, which shows us that Celts were in Italy at least by 600 BCE. I mean, that's a long time ago. And what's happening here? From this Hallstatt culture into the Latin, Celts are expanding not necessarily through war, but through commerce. This was the great technological innovation of Celts. We were a commercial, enterprise, capitalistic people. We began creating coinage. We traded up through these rivers, and these rivers is what we're getting to. The Danube flows through the heart of this region, and it was only a matter of time for such a commercial, enterprising, trading people to go down the Danube River toward present-day Romania. The reason we call it Hallstatt and Latin is because there's these lakes where Celts threw their offerings in, their ornate, decorationed weapons and artifacts and vessels into these lakes for the gods. And increasingly toward Romania we get these down the Danube, Avon Donau in Welsh today. It comes from a Celtic source, the river's name, Danube. The reason why I began with Hallstatt and Latin is that in the second half of the 4th century, Latin burials begin appearing in northwestern Romania and the Pannonian Plain in Hungary. Over 150 of these are found going into Romania above the Apennine Mountains and down into Transylvania, in Turdas, Hatseg, Mediaș, Someș, Hunedoara, Bursa, Sfântu Gheorghe, Ciuc, Ciomești, Pișcot, Funuteli, Seneșlau, Cătușeni, Galați Bistrețe, and Brașov. And in these areas there's a shift from burial to cremation, which shows they are shifting in cultural and faith beliefs. Also, this burial does not go away entirely, however. You have these burial mounds. These are spread all over Central Europe, and they're creeping down the Danube and into Romania. But the Celts are increasingly being pressed between new emerging powers from the Mediterranean, from the east, and from the north with Germanic tribes. And in 335, they launch a great military invasion of Greece and the Balkans. I mean, I guess if you're living up in central Germany during the winter, you might want to have a bit of a holiday. And this warrior king, Brennus, invades Greece, and initially it's a success, but it ends up a catastrophic failure. And they found a new Celtic kingdom in Bulgaria, Tile or Tilis. Some go off to Turkey, but most, or a significant group, they go back up to Pannonia, present-day Hungary, on the borders of Romania, and rejoin their new Celtic homeland, with less pressure from the Germanic tribes in the north at the time. Present-day Hungary, Pannonia, the plain, the fertile plain, Celts had already moved into this, establishing in a sense a new Celtic homeland. And we find a plethora of artifacts there, and they begin moving into western Romania, Arad, Timișoara, Satu Mare, these regions between Hungary and the Apuseni Mountains. We can tell from artifacts, weapons, jewelry, remains of clothes, that the Dacian and Celtic cultures were interweaving in the 3rd and early 2nd centuries. They were coexisting, but the dynamic in politics was changing. Celts had been dominant in Transylvania, but Dacians were slowly coalescing into a political state, which the Celts didn't really have an answer for. In the 3rd to early 2nd centuries BCE, these two cultures, Celtic and Dacian, are interchanging in cultural items, materialistics, religions, architecture, which means Dacians are taking on a lot of the Celtic culture, but they keep their political structure, which means that they're expanding and growing as a Dacian culture in their own right, which begins to press up against the Celtic culture, and there's tensions in Transylvania, clearly. Around this time, Roman historians were beginning to write about peoples on the other side of the Danube to the north, Celts. And one of these writers was Gnaeus Pompeius Trogus. Can we just appreciate his middle name, the one that he went by preferably, was practically the word Pompous. Pompeius. Pompous. Ooh. I approve. Gnaeus Pompeius Trogus was a Gallo-Roman, meaning he came from a tribe, a Celtic tribe, Volcanti, in present-day southeastern France, and he said these Bastarnae were Celts. He would have clearly been able to at least understand a Celtic language, but we're not sure how much of this is true. His work, Historiae Philippicae, only survives in fragments quoted mainly by others like Justin, but he tells us a lot about these Celts in the area and the Dacian emergence. A Dacian king arose, King Orolas, who defeated the Bastarnae in Transylvania, pushing them out. And he has an interesting note about what he did to motivate his men, because initially the Bastarnae were winning victorious battles against them. So he forced his men to sleep at the feet of their wives and do household chores. He feminized them as a punishment, after which they were highly motivated. And they defeated the Bastarnae and gathered Transylvania into Dacian culture. But it was not just all gone from here. No. Celtic and Dacian cultures were intermingling. Architecture is shifting into Celtic ways. We clearly see an end of Celtic dominance in Transylvania from the reign of Arolas. But they're still there and they're still shaping this emerging Dacian kingdom. But Dacia is entering a classical era of its glory. And this is in huge part to the injection of Celtic ideas from absorbing them into its culture. The border between Celts and Dacians shifts to the west, along the river Tisa, and you get this town Pachica, which the area becomes kind of a trading center, fusing Celtic and Dacian ideas. Just look on this map here. It's not quite correct, but I'm going to draw a bit here, which shows this area was a fusion area, blending Celtic and Dacian cultures as Dacia expanded. May I take this opportunity to mention that you can support this channel in a myriad of ways, especially Patreon. It really helps. We're building an enterprise. Come with me. In this period, we get Celtic deities coming, especially down the Danube. And we get inscriptions of gods coming in from Gaulish beliefs into Transylvania, such as Cernunnos and Sirona. Now, look at this. Cernunnos literally means the horned one. Cairn. Corn is horn in Welsh today. There are different theories on what Cernunnos was. Some saw him as fruitful, god of abundance. Others the god of wild things, animals, the wood, the hunt. Something probably combining all of those things. But this other god, a goddess rather, Sirona, she's related in her name to the word Seren in Welsh for star, and what this probably means is celestial goddess. But these were especially fusing with Roman beliefs, and Rome was increasingly coming in, and their influence would spell the end of the Celts in the region, eventually. By the 1st century BCE, the Dacian Kingdom was vastly expanding, and a king arose, Burebista. And his campaigns didn't just go into Transylvania and into present-day Hungary, where he defeated the boy and Toriski, but he conquered swathes of the Black Sea coast, down into the plain of Wallachia. And this new state was deeply unified in a way that had never been before. And Celts were absorbed into this. Metal smithery. Warrior architecture was pumped into this new Dacian state. It fused with the Celtic culture, which made it stronger, able to withstand Rome better. I would like to go into the names of these two tribes that he defeated. The boy and the Toriski. Now the boy I made a video on, I'll put that here. But their name is literally people of the cow. Probably the cattle people. Buch today in Welsh. Bo in Irish. So you can see how similar that is. Toriski. This looks very similar to Toru in my mind. And Uis, Tarwisi, would mean in Older Welsh, people of the bull. And these being in a confederation, it makes sense that both of their names are related to cattle. It seems that it was a mutually understood economy between them, and that may have been how they got their name. Now, despite this conquest by Burbista, Dacia becomes much more Celtic. It absorbs these people. Pottery changes in Dacia, becoming much more Celtic. Their weapons change. The coinage changes. Earlier coinage is purely Celtic. First, the metal changes. They adopt silver in this minting, which is a more Dacian trait. And then the style of the mint changes. So it looks like what happened is the Celts taught the Dacians how to make these coins. Again, this is quite commercial. The Celts are expanding using economic and trade rather than purely warfare. It works incredibly well, but not when Rome comes. The Celts are slowly pressed between the expanding Roman Empire, this Dacian Kingdom, and these new confederations of German tribes coming from the north, and they get absorbed out of existence. But I'd like to show you where these tribes were in Romania. Here are the peoples on a map really that shaped. Here are where these Celtic peoples were in present-day Romania. The boy who moved around quite a bit over the centuries we're talking about. The Torisci. Here, the Arnarti. The Skordiskan, who were also hugely present around present-day Serbia. Borders did not exist in the same sense they do today. The Kostoboci and the Bastarnae further north, they were probably a mixture of Celtic and German peoples. We're not quite sure. Diolch yn fawr iawn am wylio. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that look at Celts in present-day Romania. I did this because I want you to understand that, especially Romania, part of what makes it so interesting is that it's layered upon layer upon layer, and one of the earlier layers that really shapes its foundation is this memory of the Dacians. But even they were multicultural. They were not one people. They were a blending of different peoples in a confederation that expanded, absorbed Celtic influences, strengthened through it, and then waged wars against Rome. And I hope that those ethno-nationalists who occasionally comment will understand there's no pure Daci in Romania. They were hybrids in themselves. See you next time.